Hey, Facebook world, this is Tim Anderson. Normally, we do our Facebook Live on the Anderson Law Power Hour on Saturday mornings, but because a lot changed last night with the Virginia election, I thought it would be important to do the Facebook update for those of you who are maybe panicking right now about what's going to happen to the Second Amendment. So, first off, take a deep breath. All right. The Second Amendment is unchanged today. It's the same as it was yesterday. What's going to happen in Virginia now is the Democrats are going to take control of the House and the Senate. Now, it's super clear that they are going to make some changes to the gun right laws. However, any changes that they make are not going to take effect in Virginia until July 1 of 2020. So we have plenty of time to assess and address what's going to happen in Virginia with the new tax law change or with the new gun law changes. However, let's go through the predictable outcomes of things that will happen in Virginia. Now, in the 2019 legislative sessions, there was a laundry list of what are called Democrat dreams of what they wanted to do to the Second Amendment, how they wanted to change things around in Virginia. And this year, the Republicans held both the House of Delegates and the Senate. So none of these rules really got passed, but they are billed, they're chambered in there. So we know where the Democrats are going. We know that the Democrats won Virginia with a huge amount of money from California and New York. There's going to be loyalties and allegiances to those donors. So if we take California and New York as the extreme models, and we're going to see how some of that's going to apply in Virginia with the new elected officials that are going to owe Caesar the promises that they made to get elected. So first off, some changes, some expected changes I predict that are going to happen in Virginia. First, we're going to see a universal background check bill. Now, take a deep breath. That's not a bad thing. The universal background check basically means this. When you have a gun and you want to sell a gun between two private individuals, currently the law says you can do that without going through a background check. That's pretty crazy if you think about it, that if I go into a gun shop and I buy a gun, I have to go through a background check, but that gun, I can just go sell it to some stranger who may or may not be allowed to own a firearm. So the Democrats want to change that, and they want to make everybody who's purchasing a gun, whether it's new, used, from a gun dealer, a FFL gun dealer, or from a private party, to have to go through a background check. That's been called many times the gun show loophole. That's a good thing. There's no bad Second Amendment implications to that. A person buying a gun should have to go through a background check. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Defensive Tactics, which is the gun shop that I own, we do those transactions for private sellers. It is $27. It's not like it's going to cost somebody hundreds of dollars to do this. It's about $27, and the government gets to be a part of the transaction between private sellers. So universal background checks is a good thing for the Second Amendment. It's a good thing for the public. It's a good thing. The Republicans should have been behind that horse 3 or 4 years ago when this was starting to be talked about. It's ridiculous that they didn't do it. So that's not something to be completely scared of. A background check for a purchaser of a firearm should be welcomed by any reasonable gun owner. All right. Point 2. AR-15s are legal in the United States. They're legal in California. They're legal in New York. The state can't make a weapon illegal. The only people who can make firearms illegal is the federal government. There's something called the National Firearms Act, and there are firearms that have been deemed illegal. Like, for instance, you can't go out and buy a rocket propelled guided missile. You can't buy that. That's not for civilian use. You can't go buy a bazooka. All right. So the government has put restrictions on firearms. No matter what Virginia tries to do, they cannot make AR-15s illegal. But what they can do is they can make AR-15s have certain restrictions, called California restrictions currently. What you can do with a California restriction is the AR-15 may have a capacity limit. Instead of having, say, 30 rounds, the magazine may only be able to hold 10. The other thing that California does is that instead of having a button that you push on the gun to release the magazine, you can get you have to put it's like a tool, kind of like an ink pen, and you have to shove it into the side of the gun to be able to release the magazine. The purpose of that is to slow down the rapid reload of the firearm. So those are probably restrictions that you're going to see Virginia implement. Capacity restrictions, mandatory modifications to AR-15s to be able to fast release magazines. But they're not going to be able to make the gun illegal. They can't do it. The only people who can do that is the ATF through the congressional acts. So they're not going away. No matter what Virginia Democrats want and what they say, they cannot make that gun illegal under the way the rules work. No, nor can they make an automatic rifle illegal. It may surprise you that it's legal to buy an M16 automatic rifle. They're illegal. You have to go through a special background check with the ATF and go through the National Firearm Act exchange. But you can go buy an automatic M16 if you have the money and time and the wherewithal to want to do it. The gun has to have been made before 1986, and there's all these other little restrictions. You can buy a short barrel shotgun. You can buy silencers. The state government cannot say what you can and you cannot own. All right, so take a deep breath. Those rules aren't going to change. Those have to be changed on the federal side. But what we probably will see are magazine restrictions. So instead of a 30-round magazine, you're probably going to see a 10-round magazine. Now, there's probably going to be some grandfather clauses put in here, meaning that if you have the firearm and the magazine before the law goes into effect, then those aren't going to be illegal. California has tried many times to criminalize ownership of higher capacity magazines, and the federal courts have shot them down in California. So if you own a firearm with a higher capacity magazine and then it becomes illegal to buy one of those firearms in the future, that's basically just going to restrict you from being able to transfer your firearm to another seller, and it's also going to restrict your ability to purchase new magazines that have higher capacity issues. Now, if you have a firearm that holds, say, 15 rounds, and maybe Virginia is going to pass the rule that you can have a firearm that only holds 10 rounds. Most of the time, you can purchase new magazines that will fit your current firearm at the lower capacity numbers, and then your firearm is compliant. One of the other things that Massachusetts and California have done is they have trigger pulls that are heavier. So when you pull the trigger, that might be, say, 3 pounds or 4 pounds or 5 pounds. What that basically means is how much finger strength do you have to be able to pull a trigger. The more restrictive states have higher trigger pulls. So when you're pulling the gun, it's taking more pressure on your finger to be able to pull the trigger. That just slows down the ability to rapidly fire the firearm. All right. So those are some common things. Now, flipping into the other parts of the law that will probably change. Expect red flag laws to pop up. What a red flag law is basically, if I think you're acting a little loony and I think you're either going to hurt yourself or someone else, then I can file a petition to have the government come out and take your guns. And then you have to go through a court proceeding, and you have to basically prove that you're not in a panicky moment. The people in Virginia Beach, some of the coworkers of the guys that got shot here in Virginia Beach complained this guy was probably going to come in and shoot them up. So the idea is had they had these gun red flag laws in place, they may have been able to complain to the police. The police may have been able to seize the firearms, and then this whole tragedy in Virginia Beach would not have happened. This is a big, brand new area of law. It's going to be challenged. It's a big thing to take away somebody's constitutional rights on what they may do, not what they've done, but what they may do. And that's going to open up a big Pandora's box on how we might be able to punish somebody, take away somebody's rights who hasn't committed a crime or is just thinking about committing a crime or may be in a crisis moment and could commit a crime. So that's probably something we're going to see. There's good and bads about that. I can talk to you about those in one of my gun classes if you really want to hear my thoughts on it. But I think you're probably going to see red flag laws coming down. I think you're going to see rifle purchasing ages rise to 21. Currently, they're at 18. You have to be 21 to purchase a handgun in Virginia. You're probably going to have to be 21 to purchase a rifle when the new laws kick in. About 4 years ago, Attorney General Herring really jacked around with our concealed carry reciprocity. All right. That is basically means that if I have a Virginia permit and I want to go to North Carolina and carry my firearm down there, if I get stopped by the police in North Carolina, I show them my Virginia permit, and the Virginia permit is good, right? Well, Attorney General Herring revoked our reciprocity with many, many states, and our Virginia permits, which are good in about 23, 24 states safely right now, really became almost worthless except for maybe 1 or 2 states. When he did that, the Republicans pushed back very hard and very quickly, and all of that got rescinded. However, Attorney General Herring is still the Attorney General, and now the Democrats are in control. I think you're probably going to see some reciprocity challenges from the AG's office about that, because the Republicans can't stop that now that they're in the minority. So this is the time to think about getting the Utah concealed carry permit. I teach that at the gun shop. You have to do that in person. You cannot take an online course. You have to be a Utah instructor, which I am. There are some other people in Virginia that do this, but getting a Utah concealed carry permit is something that you're probably going to want to have if you care about your being able to carry your firearm in different states. Now, if all you care about is Virginia, don't worry about it. But I think that there's going to be some regulation coming out of the AG's office where you're going to see some problems with that. So getting that permit is a good redundant step. It used to be in Virginia that you could only buy one pistol every 30 days. That was all revoked about 5 or 6 years ago. If you had a concealed carry permit, you were still able to buy more than one pistol within a 30-day window. I think you're going to see all that come back. I think there's going to be restrictions on firearms, how many you can buy in a particular month. I think you're going to see mandatory gun-free zones in all state and local government buildings statewide. That was something they really pushed for after the Virginia Beach shootings. It got tabled, but I think you're going to see that. Currently, the law says the localities can decide that, but I think you're going to see that the state's going to change that across the board. Everybody, any governmental building, federal, state, local, gun-free zone, you're not going to be allowed to have a firearm in any building. So like you might be able to go into the zoning building here in Virginia Beach with a firearm before. They're going to probably make it to where that would be an illegal thing to do in the future. All right. So all of this, whatever happens, I predict all of those things are going to happen. I think those are all very realistic things, and maybe more. But anything that's going to happen is going to take effect on July 1. That doesn't mean you got to run out and go buy your guns today, okay? Our gun shop is very busy today, much more busy than it would normally be. People are panicking. Don't panic. You have plenty of time to purchase an AR-15, for instance, if you really want one, or you have plenty of time to purchase a firearm that might have a higher capacity, like a Glock 19 that holds 15 rounds. You're going to have plenty of time to do that. So you don't have to rush out to do that now, but you need to start thinking about doing it, because if you're going to want to take advantage of grandfather clauses, you have to own that firearm before the new laws kick in. And again, those new laws should take effect around July 1. That's usually when laws kick in Virginia. So the Second Amendment's not dead. We're not going to be we're not going to be in a state where you're not going to be, all guns are going to be illegal and all that stuff. That doesn't even happen in California and New York. All right. But there are going to be changes. It's guaranteed that that's going to happen. That was the big push from the Democrats. There's nothing that's going to stop them from doing it. So now is the time you're going to have to think about that. Now, you're going to hear a lot of things about stupid stuff like bump stocks and binary triggers and silencers. None of that's going to really apply. First off, bump stocks are illegal already. Donald Trump signed an executive order. You can't own those. So it doesn't, state's going to, it's just going to be like a piñata at a 8-year-old's birthday party. Everybody likes to hit it. But the reality is you can't own a bump stock legally currently today. And there's no grandfather clause on that as it is. Silencers, same thing. Those are controlled by the National Firearm Act. You're not going to see the state be able to really control that. Those are federal regulations, and the state can't make rules about how the federal government does things. And so that's going to have to be changed on the federal level. So Second Amendment's not dead. You're not going to lose your right to own a gun. The government's not coming for your guns. Don't let people scare you. Nobody's going to come out and forfeit your firearms. There could possibly be a Virginia voluntary buyback program on AR-15s. That doesn't mean you have to do it. It means that there's a voluntary buyback. You want to get rid of your AR-15, the government will give you $500 for it. It's a decision you can make, and that's something you can decide if you want to do or not. But they can't make them illegal. It's not going to be, if they try to, it's going to be challenged. And if it follows any of the precedents that have happened in Florida and California, not Florida, but California and New York, it's just not going to work. So keep all that in mind. Big changes are coming, no doubt. But best advice is if you want a firearm, a particular firearm that might hold more than 10, you want to probably try to buy it, soon, sometime between now and July of next year, end of June of next year. And 2, you probably want to get your Utah permit. Those are things that I can predict that will at least make you somewhat protected with whatever is going to come down the pipe. I'll keep you up to speed as I watch the bill progress as move through the General Assembly. Attorney Tim Anderson, call me if you need anything, 800-1000. I'm a gun rights attorney here in Virginia Beach. I have a gun shop, Defensive Tactics, and so we're going to we're going to be monitoring this very carefully because it's a big part of our practice. Have a great day, and this recording was on November 6, 2019. Things could have changed if you're watching this sometime in the future.